everybody. Welcome live to the Jim Masters Show, live entertainment, lifestyle, celebrity talk show series. Jim Masters in the host chair, reporting for duty. And we're coming to you from the New York area in the United States. And so nice to have you here. Thanks, as always, for all your love and support, all of the tweets, all of the Facebook messages, the Instagram posts, the sharing, loving, liking. We love that. We love all of you, and we appreciate your, taking a moment or two out of your busy day to join us here. We are coming to you live, and boy, do we have an extraordinary guest, somebody who has won many awards because of his creativity, but also has penned some of your favorite TV themes and movie soundtrack music and so much more, including co-writing She's Like the Wind with Patrick Swayze for Dirty Dancing. And that's just one of the many, many, many touches as far as touching our lives in the arts and music that this fine gentleman, this extraordinary multi-platinum award-winning guest has graced us with. And we are so excited. And he and I always like to chat with our guests before we go live. Again, this is a talk show, a celebrity talk show series. So I like to chat with all of you. I like to chat with our guests before and after and during, of course. We don't really call it an interview show. I don't have a list of questions. It's not ask a question and they answer it and we're out. There's plenty of that out there. This is a conversation that we have. And I was chatting with him about, the backgrounds and where he hails from. He is originally from New York, from out east on Long Island, actually exit 46 of the Long Island Expressway, Plainview, New York, which is amazing because there's a television station there, WLIW, Channel 21, PBS. And that's where I started my PBS hosting career, was at that television station. You can see that big transmitting tower off the LIE. And he lived in Astoria, Queens in New York, right across from Manhattan, which is amazing because my father hails from that great part of New York City as well. And he was born in the same hospital I was in New York, on Long Island, which is absolutely amazing. I think we might be cousins. He knows where all the good pizza and bagels are too, as do I. Right now, he's just outside the Nashville area, but he's lived in California and Hollywood and Malibu and so much more. He, again, is one of those people who has supplied so much great music for some of our favorite works of art, from film to television and stage and so much more. Who am I talking about with this big buildup? I'm talking about Stacy Widelitz. He is incredible, and we are so excited to have him here. We're going to talk a lot about some of your favorites, but what's really amazing is he started really early. I'm talking about in his basement with an upright piano when he was 14. Truly, when you start early, you might have even started earlier than that. But look at the career he has now, the lives he's touched with all of the incredible music and so much more. We're very excited to share all of this with you because when you think about it, some of the collections and some of the awards and the honors with his life in the arts are impeccable. And some of the series and the shows, and we're not going to mention them all, there's so many of them, he'll sprinkle them in during the conversation, but you will probably remember most of these. And I'm sure during the course of the conversation, it's going to bring back lots of incredible memories. Here first, of course, is a wonderful shot of our guest, Stacy, with Patrick Swayze. And of course, you recognize who we have there, the incomparable Gloria Stefan. Here's another great shot with Patrick and Stacy. That was a multi-platinum song, She's Like the Wind. And there's a whole story behind that song that wasn't necessarily written for the movie Dirty Dancing. And you may remember just a couple of weeks ago, we had John Nicola, another fabulous composer and musician who was with us, who was the co-writer of I've Had the Time of My Life. I tell you, it's been Dirty Dancing month here on our show. But the song, She's Like the Wind, was co-written by the incomparable actor Patrick Swayze and with Stacy Widelitz. And we're going to talk about, working with Patrick and all of that. Very, very special. But I just want to sprinkle in some things here to trigger your memory. Music that has been written by our very, very special guest that's joining us in just a second from the Nashville area. He wrote the music for this. Do you remember this as well? Chips 99. Yeah, he wrote the music for that. And of course, Dirty Dancing, which we'll be talking about. Also, Beverly Hills 90210. Yeah. And To Die For. These are just some of the incredible productions. The movie Quarantine, and also Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze. 500 Days of Summer. And from the Children's Television Workshop for PBS, Crow. Yes, that fabulous animated children's series. He wrote music for that. And also garnered the Emmy, World of Discovery, the documentary on ABC. This particular episode was about rhinos. And it was really, really fantastic. If you didn't get a chance to see that, that's just some of the incredible things that he's written music for. The list goes on and on and on. He even wrote the theme song to the Richard Simmons Show. Do you remember how that theme went? That's one of the most iconic themes in television. He wrote that as well. Again, he has penned so much music. He's also, in addition to being a fabulous Hollywood composer for film and television, he's also a brilliant photographer as well. We're going to talk about that. Again, he wrote the music for One Last Dance and Somewhere to Love Me and Broken Silence, a Moment of Truth movie. Nobody Lives Forever, One Hot Summer Night, the TV movie. Playing to Win, a Moment of Truth movie. A lot of the TV movies. Shattered Hearts, a Moment of Truth. The Accident, and so much more. A Child's Wish, Badge of Betrayal, Stand Against Fear. All of these TV movies. She Woke Up Pregnant. I wonder how you write a theme for that one. Deadly Web and lots more. Again, Eye of the Stalker and all kinds of incredible material for television and for film. And I love having an opportunity to chat with a guest like this who, again, loves what he does and has been doing it for a long time, has garnered the accolades, but garnered the love of so many people because you can sing to all of these songs. And again, She's Like the Wind. You still hear that on the radio today. And that's a multi-platinum winning song and one of those iconic songs for what became an iconic movie. That's just one of the things that he's had his hands in. And we're going to talk about that and more. So welcome to the show, gang. Just a little bit of I like to give a little bit of a background of who our guest is in case, there's new folks watching who are not familiar with the guests. So we take a moment or two with that. Welcome, everybody. If you'd like to comment during the live show, you can comment in what we call our JMS Levity Hall chat room. When you subscribe to our YouTube channel, which we hope you do, because that really lets us know you're enjoying it and all these episodes. When you do that, you get to have a bonus. You get to actually comment and say hello to us and to each other in the Levity Hall chat room. So without further ado, you have two New Yorkers in the house. We're going to chat for about an hour, but we'll have them back as he and I already said there's so much more to chat about. 1 hour is not going to do it justice. So we better get rolling. Let's welcome him right now from Nashville, our great friend, Stacy Widelitz, joining us here. Wow. That was just the short list of the incredible things that you've really had an opportunity to be involved in, my friend. Welcome to the show, fellow Long Islander.
Thanks. And yes, I do know where all the good bagels and pizza is. And good Chinese food also.
And the good Chinese food as well. Absolutely. So you're in Nashville, huh?
Yeah, I've been here by the way, if you hear a strange crunching noise, that's my dog chewing on a bone. So it gives that heightened sense of reality.
Have you ever used that as a sound effect for your music?
Yeah, really. It's like, well, in a horror movie, it would be great. So, yeah, I as you mentioned, I grew up on Long Island, moved to LA when I was 25 and spent 19 years out there, and then moved to Nashville about toward the end of 2000. So I've been here over 23 years, which is just amazing to me.
What was the opportunity that brought you out there? Did you go out there with a project already waiting for you, or did you go out there looking to make connections and develop projects?
Well, I had been coming to Nashville for a couple of years before actually moving here, on the recommendation of actually the Michael Lloyd, who produced "She's Like the Wind." I had played him some new songs that I had demoed, and he said, these are really good. What you should do, you should start going to Nashville to write with people. And I looked at him and I said, I don't know anybody in Nashville. And I, pictured it with the big hats and the boots and the belt and the whole thing, and was pleasantly surprised that that wasn't the case. And so I started coming here and writing with people, made a lot of friends, but wasn't really thinking about moving until the summer of 2000. Things were kind of changing in television music. The programming was heading more toward reality shows and game shows, and I wasn't quite sure if that's what I wanted to be doing, but still really didn't have it in my mind to move. But I was living in Malibu in this spot overlooking the ocean one way and the mountains the other way. And one Sunday afternoon, a real estate agent showed up at my house and said, do you want to sell your house? Your neighborhood's become hot and you have one of the better properties. And when he told me what he thought I could get for it, was a lot. And 5 days later, the house was sold.
Wow.
And 7 weeks later, I was driving across country.
Ooh.
So it was like the hand of fate took control.
Took it.
Yeah, and just said, you're doing this.
You're doing it.
Yeah.
We have so much to talk about and so many great television shows people recognize and films that you've penned the music to or co-penned it. Rewinding a little bit and taking you back to the old homestead on the East Coast. You grew up out east, Nassau County, which is, of course, one right next to the city. And you had the influences of New York and a lot of culture, a lot of arts, all the big TV stations and Broadway and all. What were some of those early influences for you when you were down in the basement doing what you were doing? What inspired you? Did you grow up in a house that was filled with lots of different music? Were you hearing music early on as a child?
Yeah, my parents were not musicians, but they were very artistically minded. My mother had studied theater and acting, and my father had studied commercial art and a little bit of photography as well. But they listened to a tremendous amount of music and a wide variety, because my father loved classical and jazz more than anything, and my mother loved show tunes and folk music. And so that was kind of the soundtrack to the house. And then when I was maybe 10, or I think it was when Sgt. Pepper came out, that's when I started listening to more rock and pop music and had favorite bands like Procol Harum and Blood, Sweat and Tears and things like that. So it was definitely the influence was this cross section. Also, you're right, Broadway being there. My parents took me to my first Broadway show when I was in 6th grade, which was Man of La Mancha. And it absolutely blew the top of my head off. It was just so good. And I think that's actually when I started having these thoughts of maybe that's what I want to do. It was influenced. One thing to correct, you mentioned that I was 14. I think you were saying—
That was your cousin was 14, right?
Yes, it was my cousin. I was 8 years old.
You were 8 years old.
Yeah, when I started the piano.
I knew it was young.
My cousin had given me my first lesson when he was 14. He was a child prodigy classical pianist.
It's incredible.
But then I started playing professionally when I was 15.
And so playing professionally at 15, tell us about that. Were you in a band? What happened for you? Because that's fantastic. And were you studying music, in school? You took the flute in the beginning, right?
Yeah, but I was flunked out of the program. And
flunked the flute?
Yeah, the teacher sent me home with a note to my parents saying that he was dropping me from the band program because I exhibited no musical ability whatsoever. So it's led to my distrust of teachers all these
I
years.
was going to say, and
But yeah, but I had been asked to join like a jazz combo when I was 14. And it was at that time was piano, bass, drums, sax, and trumpet. And then the drummer left and a different drummer came in. And that first drummer was actually Rod Morgenstein from the Dixie Dregs and Winger. Because we were schoolmates. And I'm still great friends with Rod. And and then the trumpet player left. And so then it was just the four of us. And we got an audition for a restaurant in Plainview to play there Fridays and Saturday nights. But it was a place that served alcohol. So I was underage. You had to be 18 to play there. And, the manager, there's this big Italian guy, and he says, I don't care how old he really is. I just need a piece of paper that says he's 18. And they were going to pay us, a decent amount of money for that time. And when I told my father how much they were going to pay us, but that I couldn't do it because I was underage, with his commercial art background, he disappeared in the basement for a couple of hours and came up and he had doctored my birth certificate to make me 18 years old. And I still have it to this day. And you can't tell that it was changed. I remember he showed it to me and I said, you have a second career waiting for you as a forger. So that allowed me to where we went back to the place and I showed him the birth certificate and the guy said, fine, no problem. And so that was our first paying gig.
That's fantastic.
And then it was fun because, we're playing standards like Girl from Ipanema and The Shadow of Your Smile and all that classic stuff. And the waitresses are in black leotards and there are drunks at the bar. And, for a 15-year-old kid, this is like I've died and I've gone to, adult heaven.
Right.
It was just such a revelation.
And then you were also writing music at the age of around 19 for a small studio in Stamford, Connecticut, and left college soon after to really focus on composing, right?
Yeah, I had a jazz piano teacher that I was working with through the college that I went to for 2 years, which was Manhattanville College in Purchase, New York. And after I quit, I was writing music not just for this little studio, but my jazz teacher, Lou, had a Monday night jazz workshop with some great people in it. And I was writing music for the workshop and we were performing it. And one day Lou lived in this beautiful home on 2 acres in Pound Ridge, New York, which is very expensive. And even back then, and with a pool and a pond and a separate studio with his 7-foot Steinway in there.
That and Scarsdale, yes.
Pound Ridge, right?
Right there.
Yeah. So, and so at the end of a lesson, I said to him, Lou, did you marry a very wealthy woman? And he looked at me, he said, no. He said, you don't know everything I did. And it turned out he wrote some very famous jingles and made a tremendous amount of money doing that. And he looked at me and he said, you're a really good piano player.
Yeah.
But if you ask me, your path is as a composer.
Yeah.
Because you do it easily. You're already getting paid for it. If you pursue that professionally, you may not have to go out on the road, probably get more respect and all this. And on the drive home from that lesson, it was like, the heavens opening up and the choir singing. And I was like, oh, yeah, he's right. That's what I need to do.
So you went from early on the adult heaven to the heavens opening up and the choir.
Yeah, right, exactly.
There's a theme here, my friend.
Yeah, right. Well, it's the hand of fate.
It's the hand of fate. So to have that opportunity be presented to you is extraordinary. And what did that then lead to?
Well, I continued to do work with this studio in Connecticut, in Stamford. And we were doing, as the studio grew, we grew what we were doing as well. We did some local jingles. We did industrial shows for Pan Am and Karastan Carpeting and Xerox.
Yeah.
Good
Oh, yeah.
corporate work.
Yeah.
But I felt like there was a ceiling to that.
Yeah.
And by this point, I was, were we living together? But anyway, we were seeing each other, a singer named Wendy Fraser.
Mm-hmm.
And her father was a television producer. And I had met him. I had played him music of mine, which he really liked. And Wendy and I approached him and called him. He was in LA and said, is there anything that we might submit on? And he said, yeah, I have this new show. But here's the deal. I'm not going to give it to you by any stretch of the imagination. He said, I have to like what you come up with. My wife has to like it because she's co-produced it. The star has to like it. And the syndicator has to like it. If you can please all four, then you've got it. So Wendy and I worked on something that we liked, and we called him and we played it for him over the phone with me at the piano and her just kind of singing the melody, do, 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 you know, like this. And there was this pause, and he said, wow, that's really good. Play that again. And so we did. And then he got his wife on the phone, Nora, and we played it again. She said, that's really good. And so we sent him a cassette, again, just piano and voice. And a few days later, he called and he says, everybody loves it. You're booked on a flight this Thursday to LA, and we're booking the musicians for you at, I think it was Paramount Recording Studios in Hollywood.
Now, before we tell people the name of this show, and very recognizable, beloved show with a beloved figure in television, did you already have a premise of what the show is going to be about? Did they show you footage or anything in advance so you got an idea of what the feeling and vibe of this show would be? Because this theme song that you guys wrote was, and I was telling you this before we went live on the air, was so absolutely perfect for this series. And I still, and that's the mark of a terrific melody, I still hear it in my head today. It's one of those great catchy themes that when you heard it, you knew who you were going to watch, what the show is about, and the feeling you were going to get. And that's not easy to always capture, but you did with what you're going to be telling us. Yeah.
Her father kind of, gave me a description. Plus Wendy had met the star once, and so got a sense of his personality. And that's what we were really gearing it toward, was this is about the star of the show. This is his personality. So, we got it. And, I'll say what it is now. It's the Richard Simmons Show.
The Richard Simmons Show, yeah.
And
wrote the theme to the Richard Simmons Show, gang. Yeah.
Yeah, and also all the what they call the bumpers, which is the music in and out of commercial.
Exactly.
And there's the sad version of the theme and the so it's a whole, you build up a whole collection of music for it.
Absolutely. One of the great themes and always underrated. And I dug out this promo clip, and it's for the show on one of the stations. I think it's WFSB, CBS, Channel 3 in Hartford, which aired the show, I think, Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. And listen to the theme, folks, and this will trigger memories for you. It's just a little clip, a promo for one of the episodes. And this gentleman that you're seeing here wrote this theme, The Richard Simmons Show.
Hi, my name is Richard Simmons, and our next show is about R&R. No, not ribs and ravioli. It's rest and relaxation. You're going to meet Barry, you're going to meet Judy. They've lost 100 pounds, well, between them, and they learned how to relax, and they learned how to take all the tension on their lives. So come with us for The Richard Simmons Show. Great exercises, and relax with us, okay?
Fight Fat with Richard, Monday morning at 9 on TV3.
Incredible. Incredible.
Yeah.
That was such a great theme, truly. Yeah.
Well, much to our surprise, because it's I think in New York, it debuted on WOR like at 7 a.m. or something like that.
And then it went to Channel 7, WABC. Yeah.
Eventually
as well.
for an evening show.
Yeah.
But it became an unexpected hit. The show really took off. And that left Wendy and I in an interesting position where, in discussing it, we realized that if we really wanted to use the show as an opportunity, as kind of a wedge into the business, we had to move to Los Angeles from New York. We were living together in Astoria, Queens at this point. And so we did. It took, it was about a year after the show debuted. We packed up the car and my piano and gear, and we moved to Los Angeles.
Wow, what an opportunity. And again, that theme was heard Monday through Friday for quite a few years, and then the evening. And sometimes, and I've said this with folks I've had an opportunity to converse with that do the kind of work you do, you almost, it's sometimes like with production music and news themes, and it's just used for that show or that broadcast, or maybe it's even a one-off, it's a special. And you like the music so much, you almost wish that it could be used for so many other things, and that it could be a song that is, on a CD and something. And there's so much music, like jingle music, that is written specifically just for that moment, that promo, and that's it. But if you dissect it and you listen to the music itself, it's extraordinary stuff. And I love jingles. And I've talked about this a lot with folks who've been in the jingle world, from the singers to the lyricists and composers, and some of the major people who've created all these feel-good promos for the networks and the TV stations, radio stations, and commercial product, and so much more. I almost wish some of that would return, because it really, first of all, identified you, or identified the product for you, or the station, or whatever it is. But at the same time, it made you feel good. These jingles made you feel good. And I think our world needs right now a dose of some nice, friendly, encouraging jingles.
Yeah, sometimes it works the other way. Interestingly, Eyewitness News in New York, on ABC for years with Roger Grimsby and those guys, that had a very specific and very iconic theme that was actually taken from a movie.
Cool Hand Luke, right?
From Cool Hand Luke. That's right.
Yeah,
So
it became the Eyewitness.
The other way. So
here's something this is just shop talk here, but you probably knew this. Dick Marks, fabulous composer out of Chicago, wrote the Chicago Bulls theme and a lot of other things, and he was a trumpet player. And his son is the iconic singer Richard Marks, who still performs today. But one of the iconic themes in television news for the CBS stations, da 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 da. Oh yeah. We've all heard that for decades in many different versions of it. Well, you've heard it on WCBS Channel 2 in New York. You've heard it on KCBS in Los Angeles and in Chicago and all the CBS stations. And now I think there's other stations beyond CBS that use iterations of that theme. But that came out in like the late 70s and has continued to run today in various updated forms. Turns out, whether that was used in New York, Philadelphia, Boston, LA, wherever, the actual theme has words to it. And it was written specifically for Channel 2 in Chicago, WBBM. And the part where it goes da 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 is I love Chicago, Chicago I love. It's really Chicago, written by Dick Marks, Richard Marks, the singer's dad. Amazing stuff.
And Richard Marks was married for a long time to Cindy, her last name just went out of my head, who played Penny in Dirty Dancing.
Oh, yes, that's right. It's all, everybody's related.
It's true. It's basically, I have a joke about Nashville that if you're going to talk trash about somebody in a restaurant, make sure you look around.
Yes,
There's always somebody that knows somebody.
absolutely right.
Amazing.
Speaking of that, you as well. Look at this here, Patrick Swayze and Gloria Stefan, and tell us about this time here. Very important time in your life.
Well, what happened? This is at an award ceremony. BMI, the Performing Rights Organization. Patrick and I had won 2 sets of awards, actually, as one of the most played pop songs of the year, and then the most performed song from a movie. So this is at the Pop Awards, and Gloria had won Songwriter of the Year. So, we were asked to take pictures with her. And
look at this one.
That's when we got our first platinum record, which was triple platinum. And,
that's incredible.
And it's now certified 14 times platinum. So there's the single.
Tell us about that song. It's iconic. It's part of the movie, but initially, and of course, working with Patrick Swayze, was it initially the song wasn't necessarily written for the movie?
No, we wrote it for a different movie. What happened was Wendy and I moved to LA, and we were living in the Wilshire Fairfax area, and I met this actor in his acting class that he was attending because I was there to play piano for another actor friend of mine. And this guy comes up and says, "Hi, I'm Buddy," and was on break, and he said, "I really liked what you were saying about musical theater," because it turned into a discussion with the teacher in the class, and the teacher brought me into the conversation. And he said, "And I like your playing," and I said, "You look really familiar." And so he said, "Oh, have you seen The Outsiders?" And I said, "No." And he mentioned some other things that I hadn't seen. And then this blonde woman came over and he said, "This is my wife, Lisa." And I said, "Okay, now I know the two of you are always working on a black 240Z on La Jolla Avenue on the weekends." And they said, "Yeah, how do you know that?" And I said, "I live right around the block from you. I pass you all the time." And so we lived 2 houses away from each other.
Mm.
And he knew, obviously that I was writing music for TV, and, and he and Lisa and Wendy and I became friends, and we'd hang out, and I had somewhat of a background of music for dance as well. So we'd talk about that from when I worked with a Jose Limon dance company. And so one day, it was actually just almost exactly 40 years ago. It was April of 1984. He called me up and he said, they're looking for songs for the movie that I'm doing, which was called Grandview USA. And he said, "I've had this idea for a song for a couple of years, but I can't get anywhere with it. Do you want to work on it with me?" And so I said, "Yeah, sure, come on over." So that he lived around the block. So that evening he came over with his guitar. Very musical guy. He was in a band in high school. He was on Broadway in Greece, so he could sing. And he had 2 chords and a lot of lyrics. And the first 2 lines I really liked, which was, "She's like the wind through my tree, she rides the night next to me." And I didn't like the 3rd and 4th lines, and I told him, and he said, "Well, what would you say?" And so I thought for a minute, and I said, "She leads me through moonlight only to burn me with the sun." And so he looked at me, he said, "What does that mean?" And I said, "I don't care, just write it down." And then we kind of moved it along musically. But it was when we realized that "She's Like the Wind" could actually be the title and hook of the song and not just the opening line. That's when we knew we had something. And what we did was we did a very good quality demo of it with, I programmed all the synths and drums, brought in a guitarist. He did the lead vocal. Wendy did some backgrounds, and then kind of this little duet with him, which is in the final version as well. But then it wasn't used for Grandview, and it sat around for a couple of years, and he played it for the producers and director of Dirty Dancing on location in North Carolina. And he called me, this is now 1986, and he said they want it for Dirty Dancing, which, big whoop. It was a low budget movie that the word on the street was it's going to be terrible. It's going to go to the theaters for 1 week and then totally disappear to video. And that would be the end of it. So I said, okay, you know, that's fine. But then he said, no, they're going to do a soundtrack album, the whole thing. And Jimmy Einer was a legend of music, was the executive producer of the soundtrack. And Michael Lloyd was brought in to produce our song. And then he also produced Time My Life. I remember the morning of the session because I was there when you hear the final version, that's me playing all the synthesizers.
Is it really? That I didn't know. Wow.
So I was there through all the sessions. And
what was it like working with Patrick on this, but just working with Patrick, who, of course, we gone way too soon?
Yeah, he was a great guy. I wouldn't say easy to work with because he's very intense.
Yeah.
And he was very, very competitive also. Sometimes with me, but, this is a guy that could excel at just about anything.
Right.
And so he was very, very driven. But we had a very good kind of funny, joking relationship. So it kept everything very even. It kept everything running.
He knew you were good at what you did.
Yeah, we respected each other. And, and I ended up working with him and his wife on a stage production as well in the mid-'80s at the Beverly Hills Playhouse where I first met him. It was a dance piece that the two of them and a third dancer did called Without a Word, because dance is emotion without words. And it was fantastic. It won a bunch of awards and it became like a thing where all of a sudden I look up, because I played live in the show. And at one point I look in the audience and there's Gene Kelly. And then the next week, Liza Minnelli was there and all this. So we worked together on a number of things. And then a movie that you mentioned earlier that is loosely based on Without a Word called One Last Dance that he and Lisa did. I wrote most of the music for that as well.
We had John DiNicola with us just a couple of weeks ago.
Also Long Island boy.
Also a Long Island guy, I tell you. And now he's up in sort of upstate New York a little bit, which of course, if you are from the island, which is not part of New York City, it's part of New York State. People think it's part of the city. Anything north of the Bronx is considered upstate. So if you're going to see your aunt in White Plains, you think you're going upstate, but you talk to somebody in White Plains and they'll say, we're not upstate. Syracuse is upstate.
If you grow up on Long Island, anything past New Jersey is the West. And anything lower than Pennsylvania is the South. So
right.
White Plains might as well be Canada. So it's
right.
Long Island has its own.
It's its own, surrounded by the water, totally detached from the mainland. It's its own island. And he was talking about, the making of I've Had the Time of My Life. And one of the things we were talking about is nobody thought that this movie, Dirty Dancing, would turn into what it did. And how did that, you've already been doing some epic work, but once that hit and everybody fell in love with that, how did that change your world? And this movie still shows, it still is revered. There's a cult following for it as well. It's a love story as much as it is about the music and the dance and everything else. How did your life change when this movie became the hit that it did, to the surprise of so many?
Well, everything changed. I mean, it's there were other things going on in my life at the time as well, which I'll get into in a second. But when the movie came out, It was, I think, #4 on the box office, and the next week was #2. So it actually moved up. And then the soundtrack, which had been released erroneously 3 weeks before the movie, tanked completely. But then
because that wasn't attached to the movie yet.
But then with the premiere of the movie, RCA Records started aggressively re-promoting it, and the first single, which was Time of My Life. And both of those pretty much shot to #1.
Yeah.
And I remember being in my apartment, and Michael Lloyd, the producer, called me. And he said, hey, guess what? You're getting a gold record for the soundtrack of Dirty Dancing. And I said, oh, great. I've never gotten a gold record. That's fantastic. So about a week and a half went by. And I called him and I said, because I didn't know how it worked. And I said, Michael, did they send me the gold record? How does it work? And when am I going to get it? And he said, you're not getting a gold record. And I said, wait a second, you told me I'm getting a gold record. He says, no, now you're getting a platinum record. And so I said, so in a week and a half, it sold another 500,000 copies. So he said last Sunday, it sold 280,000 copies. And so it was a phenomenon like nobody had seen. And Michael's words to me, he says, we're riding the wave of something and nobody knows where this is headed. And by the time Patrick and I got our platinum records, it's, as the picture showed, it was triple platinum. And then Wendy got hers a week later, and it was a quadruple platinum at that point. So it was just
incredible,
like wildfire. And then our song was the third single. It was Time My Life, then Hungry Eyes, and then She's Like the Wind, which was released in December of '87, but peaked on the charts in February or March of '88. But the other thing that was going on along those, here, Wendy is prominently featured on the song. Actually, if you look at the record, it says Patrick Swayze featuring Wendy Fraser.
Is this what's behind you on the wall?
Yeah, that's the 11 times platinum. So, and that's just for US. They think worldwide it's somewhere in the 40 to 45 million range. But anyway, so, Wendy sings on the song. She's on the copy for the album and all this. And after 7.5 years together, we split up, I think 3 weeks before the single was released. And she moved into her own apartment, and it was, kind of a bitter, not sweet. It was just bitter. And, but it was just so weird that all of a sudden this song is all over the airwaves. And it's like, oh my God, it's a constant reminder. But
it's still these songs, She's Like the Wind, Hungry Eyes, I've Had the Time of My Life, and these kinds of songs that they take on a monumental feeling for people. They're not just generational, but at the same time, they carry on like the wind for generations to come. And you still hear this, on satellite radio, and you can walk into a store and it's on in the background, and people have the music, in their possession. They've purchased it. And that's sort of legacy building, right. You know what I mean? And when you hear these songs, especially from that time period, you feel good. You want to dance, you want to, have a good time, and there's depth and warmth and feeling and a fabulous melody line underneath. And some of it today, like with movies, you're not really hearing or seeing a movie come out where 3 or 4 songs from that movie are these tremendous hits on radio, tremendous sales in the stores, now online. Some of that, like jingles, has sort of disappeared in the most recent years, right?
The days of the big selling soundtrack record are long past, but things come and go. You never know. All it takes is a movie to come out with a bunch of great songs, and then all of a sudden the soundtrack does incredibly well, and then everybody wants to do a soundtrack.
Look what
So
happened with the Bee Gees with Saturday Night Fever, right?
Saturday
You
Night
know?
Fever, The Bodyguard was a huge soundtrack. Footloose was a huge soundtrack.
The Titanic with Celine
Titanic.
Dion, and
and then you know, obviously Dirty Dancing, but you know, it's more than just the original version of the song, because in 2006, a German hip hop group did a version of She's Like the Wind, and it went to #2 in Germany and in other parts of Europe, and was a huge hit overseas.
Yeah.
And then another hip hop version was done in the US that did very well.
Yes.
And then it's been going through a moment recently. It was used in a big ad campaign a year and a half ago for Virgin Media in the UK.
Yes.
And then I just saw Joey Fatone of NSYNC. He's performing the song on his tour that he's doing,
Is he really?
because it was his audition song
Yes.
on tour. And then, so I see a video of that, and then I get a video of a 10-year-old kid on Polish television, on The Voice Kids Poland.
Doing that.
He's singing She's Like the Wind, and he's 10 years old.
Well, I said to John DiNicola, as far as I've had the time of my life and Hungry Eyes, you know, you've made it big when a song that you've penned becomes an easy listening, beautiful music instrumental on beautiful music radio. And that song as well has been done by the orchestras and the bands. So many incredible interpretations I've heard of She's Like the Wind.
Yeah, the one that one of the very first covers that came out was very funny, because I heard about it and I called Patrick and I said, "Hey, I've got some good news and some bad news." And he said, "What's the good news?" And I said, "Somebody's covering She's Like the Wind for his record." And he said, "Well, what's the bad news?" And I said, "It's John Tesh." So it was like, you know,
Actually, yes. And that's a good that's a great version. Yeah.
it was like, but that was the easy listening piano version.
Yes, right.
So
Another
but-
Long Island guy, Garden City.
yeah, but I've heard there's a band in Sweden called Heat. And they
Yes.
did a great heavy metal version of it. So it's like She's Like the Wind meets the Scorpions.
I've always wondered, it's got to be exciting when you hear, like John was saying that with I've had the time of my life, I believe. He heard the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra do a version of that and absolutely loved it. I would imagine when you create a song and then you hear it interpreted with different instruments and maybe just a little bit of a different, not arrangement, but just some softening or whatever, it must be kind of cool to hear something you've created interpreted in that way by a big orchestra or what have you.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. And I talked about this with Patrick, and I've talked about it with John DiNicola and Frankie Previtt, his co-writer, that you write something that achieves this type of life, and it's like you've created an organism that is now completely separate from you. It has now a life and a trajectory of its own that you don't know where it's going or when it's going to reappear or come up. And part of that is also hearing stories over the years of how the song has affected people. One of my favorites and one of the most moving stories was meeting a couple and the wife had gone through chemotherapy for cancer. And the husband said to me, you know, they knew what I had done. And the husband said, you know, when she was going through chemo, all she wanted to do was listen to the Dirty Dancing soundtrack. And he said, when we found out she was in remission, we set up a stereo outside and danced to She's Like the Wind under the moonlight. And, you know, you hear something like that, and it's just all of a sudden everything is worthwhile.
You realize the impact that, and music is a great healer. I say music and comedy are the ultimate healers, balancers, neutralizers, bringing people together. And music, you know, you never realize it's a form of art, how people interpret it and how they incorporate it in their lives and how important it is, whether it's instrumental, you know, choral harmony group, or just a singer by themselves. It's just extraordinary. And you have created music that has stood the test of time and extraordinary. Do you have a preference? We'll talk about some of the other material, but do you have a preference writing for television, writing for film, or is it all just a true passion and love for you, Stacy?
Well, I've kind of gotten out of the TV and film end of the business, especially after I moved to Nashville. It's great. It's changed a lot. It now is subject to some of the same problems that the record industry has in terms of streaming shows. The royalties aren't the same. The fees have gone down. And it's highly pressurized. When it's not just about writing music. It's not like this, artsy experience.
Where you have time to allow it to breathe and create. Now everything is, and you got to be a hit immediately.
You're under a tremendous deadline. And for scoring work. I mean, you mentioned the show Crow, the cartoon series. I wrote all the music for those episodes, and I also wrote the theme song. And I had to turn in 22 minutes of finished music every 6 days, and then the next day start the next episode. And that was a brutal schedule. I mean, it was being creative 8 to 10 hours a day, which is very hard.
How did you do it? How were you able to master that? Because the work stands for itself. Yeah.
I actually disciplined myself like an athlete almost. That it was, this is when I'm going to bed. This is when I'm waking up. This is when I'm having breakfast. This is when I'm walking the dogs. And this is the time when I step into the studio. And it was very, and I'm not the most disciplined person on earth. So this imposed discipline on me. And so the songwriting was in a way more fun because it was more, just spontaneously creative. Although some, like I co-wrote the end title song for Pocahontas II for Disney, and that was assignment writing. It was get very specific about it. And fortunately, what we came up with worked. But it's not like most people think. I used to write with a guy, Danny Wilde, who was in the Rembrandts. And Danny and I used to joke when we'd finish a song, we'd look at each other and we'd say, "Kids, don't try this at home. It's much more dangerous than you think."
And you think
it's because it's really hard.
Can really be. And some of the things that you've written for, I mentioned Quarantine and To Die For and 500 Days of Summer. And
in that movie, they licensed She's Like the Wind for that. So that's what they used. Which
is fantastic.
Yeah.
And also Emmy for the documentary World of Discovery on ABC. That was fantastic. But what was that like, being a part of that and doing it for documentary form?
Well, that was actually, I did 4 documentaries for ABC, and there were 4 of my favorite shows because they were very, very creative. The producers were great to work with. They gave me a lot of latitude. And in the case of the Rhino show, Last Charge of the Rhino, they actually brought me in to the editing process to tell them, I could picture doing a music montage here. So why don't you leave this without the narration? And, we can do this and actually guided them on what the point of the show was. So we had a very, very good working relationship, and I really enjoyed working in those. And plus, it was also semi-orchestral. So I got to use synthesizers, but also strings and woodwinds, and I conducted at Capitol Records A, and that's a whole other experience.
Oh, absolutely.
Standing up in front of a group of incredibly qualified musicians, suddenly thinking, I know nothing. So it was a lot of fun.
Did you end up working with a lot of the same musicians on these projects? So was it, the session musicians who were brought in to really knock it out of the park? Did you have like an A-list crew that you were able to assemble, or were these people brought to you, and then you have to work it out with them. How did that all work? Or did it different on different projects?
Different on different projects. There were some things, a lot of the TV movies that I did were primarily synth scores, but I would sometimes bring in a guitarist, and was always the same guitarist, a friend of mine named Zeke. And then also there was a wind player that I used a bunch of times because he could play just about any wind instrument. And then in the early days in LA, when I was still with Wendy, we used kind of a set group of players for some of the work that we did. So it varies over time. And then when I came to Nashville and started doing a lot of song demos here, I had a group of guys that I worked with a lot.
I know that, in doing my research, there was something that you've done so much, and we're just scratching the surface. But one of the things that I know is special for you was this here. And tell us about this one, Erie, Indiana.
Oh, God. That's so funny because I just watched one of the episodes the other night.
Yeah.
Found out that they were available on streaming.
Right.
And that was one of my absolute other favorite shows to work on, because Erie, I think Erie was actually the model for the show Stranger Things. Because it was dealing with kids experiencing the supernatural. And in the case of Erie, Indiana, it's more tongue-in-cheek, because Erie is the center of weirdness in the universe. Like Elvis lives in Erie, Bigfoot lives in Erie, all these. And it was almost like the Wonder Years meets the Twilight Zone.
Right.
So in scoring, that was all scoring or writing to picture. I could really explore different harmonic approaches because of the sci-fi element. With sci-fi, the reason I always love doing sci-fi and suspense is that you can get really wild musically, and you can really kind of expand outward what you're doing. And it was actually an episode of Erie that my agent had called me and said, "Hey, there's somebody that wants to watch you work, and on Erie, can you take let him watch you for a couple of days?" And I was like, "I don't know, who is it?" And he said, "It's Ray Manzarek from The Doors."
Wow.
And so, you're kidding.
Right.
So Ray Manzarek came over to watch me work on Erie. So that was pretty intense, but and very nice guy. I mean, incredibly nice guy.
Unbelievable. The body of work is extraordinary and continues today, like you say, sort of removed a little bit from the television film world. What are some of the kinds of things you're doing now?
Well, I'm still doing some writing here and there. If it's specifically with an artist, I tend more toward that these days. But a big creative enterprise for me came up unexpectedly about 7 years ago on a trip to Italy, when I bought a new camera and started taking pictures of people in black and white.
Yes.
Because I love old black and white photography. And it turned into a thing. I've now had 4 shows. I had a show at the airport most recently, Nashville Airport. I've sold a bunch of pieces. I've won 7 awards. I have a network of photographers around the world that are familiar with my work, and I'm familiar with theirs. And so that's been really fun. And it's nice later in life to find something that's just completely different. So it's the
world of photography still, it's a way to express, because you are definitely a storyteller, as you have been, capturing the feeling, the vibe, and everything that goes along with film and television. No matter what the genre is, you've been able to master it, from the Richard Simmons Show to Crow to Die For to Dirty Dancing and so much more. And now through photography, through your eyes, through the lens, you're able to weave these wonderful stories, which, and again, we all interpret art our own way, but to at least get us to be aware of the life around us visually now, which I think is fantastic. Your bottom line is you love to touch all of the senses in life, and you've done that.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I've never had a regular job. So it's like,
Because you love it.
This is all I've ever done since I was 15 years old.
Yes.
And, you want to feel old? Because I joined the Musicians Union, Local 802 in New York when I was 15, and then transferred to the LA union. And a few years ago, I got my lifetime union card. And you see that, and it's like, oh my God, I'm old. So it's but it was, it's basically,
But well earned for sure.
Yeah, but it's all I've ever done, and all I ever really wanted to do. Again, the photography is a unexpected journey, but very welcome and a lot of fun. So that allows me to, I was in Paris and London in February taking pictures, and this June I'm going to Madrid and Barcelona for the same thing. So it gives me something to do. Let's put it that way. Oh, sorry, my phone.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know you got to go because you have something coming up that you got to do. You and I can chat for days. I love this shot.
That's in Havana, Cuba, in one of those great old cars from the 50s that they have down there. That's 2013, I think.
Yeah.
I was part of a group, an art and architecture tour to Havana, and it was fantastic. And then I was back in Havana in 2016 as well.
And a lot of great music has come out of Cuba as well. You must always have your ears peeled to music you're hearing no matter where you go around the world, right?
Yeah. Well, also, I've listened to a lot of world music because, like, say, with the Rhino show, I used a lot of percussion that was African percussion. And so it added that flavor to it. So it's just a fun thing. I mean, it's the thing about a career in music, and I've talked about this with all my musician friends, you can stay childlike. Matter of fact, it's encouraged that you stay childlike, to view things with fresh eyes all the time, fresh ears. And it's, that's the gratifying part of it, is that it's just really fun. And the other thing for me was meeting so many of my boyhood heroes like Ray Manzarek and, Al Cooper and Quincy Jones and, all these people along the way that are just like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm sitting here talking to this person. So it's
we came over to your house and we dug into your iPod or your stereo or your boombox, what would probably be in it right now?
Well, in my computer, I have everything from Three Penny Opera in the original German to songs by Olivia Rodriguez. It's a very eclectic mix. I still have every vinyl record that I bought from the age of 12 on in storage upstairs in my house. And I occasionally go through those boxes, and I'm always amused by my collection that there'll be Stevie Wonder, but then there'll be electronic music by Karl-Heinz Stockhausen. And, so it's carried on the tradition of my parents of very eclectic mix of music.
Why do you love this so much? Why does it bring you such great blessing and joy? Because your work and your take on life and working with all of these people, because it does take a village, all of these incredible people that have worked alongside you and with you to collaborate and help create. What are some of these things about it? Like you say, it's not work. It's just something that you have to do, and it's in you and you love doing it. Some of the blessings and joys in your life that allow you to continue to create all these years in the way that you've done.
I'll put it this way. It beats working. It's very, very hard work. And, a lot of people that I know in the entertainment industry are absolute workaholics. But it's still that sense of, I've affected other people. Something that came out of my head has moved people, or through my camera lens has moved people in some way. They feel something, and that's a very privileged position to be in.
Yes, it is. And I know you know that you're blessed, and you've been very cognizant of that and appreciative of everything that's come your way, as a result of all of the incredible work. Stacy, I know you've got to scoot off, busy day, but this was really sensational. And, for everybody who has been touched by your vision, your touch, thank you very much for all this great music, whether it's TV themes to great TV shows and series, or all the film music, or, anything from the commercial and corporate side of things, industrials, jingles, all of this. Absolutely have made an impact and continue to through your photography as well. And now when everybody hears this material, these songs in the stores, on satellite, streaming, whatever it is, on their TV sets, they're going to know the guy who was responsible, or part of a team that was responsible, which I think is so cool. I really hope you enjoyed the time with me as much as I have with you, Stacy.
Yeah, it's been great. If you ever want me back to talk about more on the photography, I'd be happy to do it. So
it would be an absolute pleasure. Thanks for all the time, and I hope the show met whatever expectations you had. And
great.
I appreciate that. And as I always say, we're going to keep the porch light on for you as well. You're welcome back anytime. Spread the word about our show. We would love that. And we're live, but this will be archived as well, so people can see this 24/7. Stacy, thanks so much, fellow Long Island kid.
Thanks.
Long Island kid who made good. That's it. Hopefully we'll be splitting a Knish or something soon, one of these days in person.
All roads lead back to Long Island, so it's that's the way.
You could go anywhere in the world, and because you've been, and I've been in quite a few places, and you'll in the corner somewhere. Once they start speaking, you'll always meet a New Yorker. Yeah. Always. Yeah. And I'm so glad I met you. Thank you for stopping by the Jim Masters Show, brightening our day today, Stacy. Really a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you so much.
You be well, and you take care.
Okay. See you soon. Bye.
Yeah. All right. Take care. Wow. That's incredible. Really. When you think of the body of work that he's responsible for, so many decades of great music, major hits, and music that we've heard throughout our lives on television shows and series, and just incredible, huh? When you get a chance to really put it all together, you don't realize. And even the start with the Richard Simmons show, I mean, already coming out of the gate with an iconic series like that, and writing the theme to that series, really is unbelievable. And that I work in television and radio, and I'm a broadcast guy, so and we're doing this show here on the net, but I love these conversations because we all know these shows and these movies and these series, and you always wonder, gee, what was it like? You hear a catchy theme, you hear a catchy jingle, or song on the radio that maybe came from a movie, and you're like, gee, how did it all come together? Who wrote the song and who sang it, and what was it like putting the music together? And in this case, one of the things that he shared with us was that the music, the soundtrack to Dirty Dancing, was sort of like a flop because it was released before the movie came out. And then once the movie came out and you heard where the music was placed at the right times, the right important moving scenes, that soundtrack became a tremendous multi-platinum hit. And if you didn't see the episode where John DeNicola was with us just last week, he was responsible for I've Had the Time of My Life, and also Hungry Eyes, which Eric Carmen made popular. That came from Dirty Dancing as well. Check that episode out on our YouTube channel. But so much music that you hear that seems like just music that is generic in the background, underscoring things of that nature. And that's usually, the music that's sort of underneath dialogue and creates a mood. I think when we had Lloyd Schwartz on, whose dad was Sherrod Schwartz, who created Gilligan's Island and the Brady Bunch and all these epic shows, we talked about some of the theme songs, and we talked about the underscoring, the music that would come in between scenes that would actually heighten the feeling and the mood of whatever the scene was, whether it was emotional, it was jovial, and how important that is, and the people that it takes behind the scenes to think up and then put pen to paper and then work through with singers and musicians the feeling that you're trying to capture. It's just extraordinary. I've always found it absolutely fascinating, and I tip my hat to those who have been responsible for the music. And look at three icons right here with Stacy and Gloria Stefan and Patrick Swayze there on a very important evening in their lives. And we talked about Patrick, of course, who was a perfectionist in many ways, of course. And of course, She's Like the Wind, an iconic song. We all love that song when we hear it, right? And as I mentioned, some of the other things, and this really just scratched the surface. Beverly Hills 90210, he penned the music for that as well, and all of these movies and shows and series. I just think it's cool stuff. So now when you watch these movies, whether it's on Netflix or YouTube or Antenna TV or Tubi or wherever you watch, and of course from the Children's Television Workshop, Crow, this fantastic animated children's series, and this series as well, and just so much. You get a chance to get an understanding of what it's all about, and he talked about how difficult it is and demanding it is, especially now, how quickly the music needs to be developed and out there, and it's got to be a hit right away. We also want to let you know that this is his website, and he is an extraordinary photographer, and he really captures some beautiful things with his eye. You can go to his website and check out some of the photography, and also a little bit more about his extraordinary, legendary background. Really, this was a fantastic conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I'm hosting and producing this series, and I get a kick out of these conversations and love finding, I'm out there always digging for great guests, celebrity friends and guests, some folks that I know personally, celebrities that I've worked with on television, radio. We've co-hosted things together, or just been on projects together, and others who stop by our show, who I'm learning about and meeting for the first time, just like you. I get a kick out of it. And if you get a kick out of all of this, that what we do here at the Jim Masters Show Live series, we would love it if you give this episode and all the episodes you enjoy a thumbs up like. What does that mean? There's a thumbs up icon on the YouTube channel on all the episodes. Click that and leave a comment. Interact with us on the YouTube channel. Leave a comment. Even if you chatted in our chat room, leave a comment underneath the episode. Why? That actually helps our series grow. Did you know that? The algorithms that YouTube has, when you like and you share and you comment and you subscribe to the YouTube channel, if you love our series and uniqueness of these, not interviews, but conversations that we have here with all of you watching and enjoying live or archived, let us know. Support what we're doing here in the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of episodes we've done. Takes a village, and we love having you here. And to those of you who do that, you like, you comment, you share the episodes, you're duly noted and appreciated. And we thank you when you like, comment, share, and don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. That helps us grow, and it lets us know you're enjoying what we're doing here on our series, The Jim Masters Show Live. This was fantastic. Believe it or not, I have to scoop myself because I have a radio show live, a New York News Network radio show. That's one of the hats I wear, and I'm on live interviewing a guest on the radio in like 9 minutes. This show is live right now, so if you're watching this, 2 days from now, it won't matter. But so I got to take this hat off of hosting this show, and I got to go to the studio and host the radio show that's live. That's the kind of day that I have, gang, working in television and radio. It's every day and constant and all these different shows on television and radio. Pierre says, fantastic program. Thank you, Pierre. We appreciate that. And Marsha Lyon watching. Thank you, Jim. Miss you too, Marsha, love having you here. You're a lovety on the Jim Masters Show. Marsha and I have worked together at public television. Yeah, she's a big supporter of PBS, and that's where we met. Kathleen Walker in New York City, thank you very much. And enjoyed listening in. Thank you very much. I love that. Nice having you here. Uncertainty Principle Music. Welcome to the Jim Masters Show Live, lovely family. Jane in Sweden watching as well, and Kathleen in New York City, and Merlin and some of our regulars watching as well. Life story, truly fascinating, right? Like I said, we don't do interviews here. We have conversations at the Jim Masters Show. We go a little deeper, a different spin on things. There's no pre-scripted questions. It's all free-flowing. And I think you get a rich experience out of it. If this was your first time joining us, we welcome you to the Jim Masters Show Live series. Come by and see us again. And for all who watch all the time, we thank you as well. Come see us. We'll keep the porch light on for you. I'm your host, Jim Masters. Thanking you for your time this time. Till next time, we will keep that light on for you. Don't forget to love one another, take care of one another, and do not forget to love yourself and take care of yourself as well. I better scoot because I'm on the air in 5 minutes on the radio. We shall see you soon. Love you all. Thanks for being with us on the Jim Masters Show Live. We'll see you on the next one right here in Levity Hall on the Jim Masters Show. Be well. Cheers.